Waka waka waka, what's up, and welcome back to the channel for yet another FC Finch video. A discussion video because it's been about 2 weeks since the last one, and we're going to be doing an Eaglemoss discussion today. That's right, we are moving to Eaglemoss, and I want to discuss the top 5 ships that I believe needed the XL treatment. Now, as a preface to this list, yes, I'm well aware that Eaglemoss is out of business, and this is a mostly moot point discussion anyway. I understand that. However, in light of Eaglemoss's demise, I feel that there is the opportunity for reflection and to talk about some of the opportunities that I feel were missed in the original collection. More specifically, the ships that were made in the smaller scale of the official Starships collection that I think should have been given the XL treatment in order to do better justice to the ship and what I believe it brought to the franchise. Now, before we get going, there's a few caveats of mine, and if you're new to this channel, if you're new to these videos, you know that this is a typical thing. Number one is if the ship appeared in Picard, Discovery, Lower Decks, it's exempt from this list. And here's my reasoning why. We know that FanHome has picked up the collection. We know that FanHome is planning on releasing more ships later on this year at some point, and I guess it's going to be called the Star Trek Universe Collection. I'm not entirely sure. But additionally, we know that these models are very likely going to be akin to the size of model we got in Discovery and Picard from Eaglemoss. So it's going to be that slightly larger scale. Not quite an XL, but good enough. And if you've seen my review on my Lower Decks Titan, that size is more than sufficient for me. That is as good as any XL for me. So as long as it was made in a larger scale. So namely, we're going to be taking the ships from the original 180 collection and their special editions only, the smaller scale special editions. Number two, while this list is my opinion, I'm going to try to make it a bit educated, which is a shock for me. But let me give you a personal example. I would love for an XL model of the Klingon, Negvar, and Vorchak class. However, if you watch Star Trek, neither of those ships really had any prominent screen time or appearances that would warrant an XL version of themselves. So I'm going to be sticking ships that not only I feel should have had an XL for my own personal reasons, but as well as ships that I believe it would have made sense from a sales perspective or from a purchase perspective. So it's going to be my decision, but it's also partially now I'm going to have some logic to it, as the Vulcans would say. Number three, this is not a wish list. It's a wish list, but it's not. If it didn't have a model with it in the original 180 collection of smaller models or the special editions that were smaller models, it's not on this list. There had to have been a pre-existing model of the ship to warrant its mention on this list. If you have your own wish list, that's fine. Let me know in the comments. I am down to read wish list. I'm down to talk about wish list, but it's not going to be mentioned in this video. And lastly, but not leastly, this goes without saying, but I gotta say it. This is purely my opinion. I also realize that I may not be the most well-informed person. I'm not the uber Trekkie, let's put it that way. If you are more well-informed than I on some topics, let me know in the comments. That's what they're for. I'm happy to discuss with you. I'm happy to talk about Trek. I'm happy to admit that I'm wrong. We can discuss it there, and I am more than happy to do that after the video. So just take that with you. That said, sit back, relax, subscribe. This is my list of top 5 Eaglemoss ships that I believe needed the XL treatment. And in the words of Captain Pike, let's punch it. Starting off at number 5, the Jem'Hadar Battleship, issue number 132 in the original collection and first seen in the Deep Space Nine episode Valiant. And I want to talk about this ship for a couple reasons. The first one being the size of the ship. The XL collection, when it came about, it gave us a chance to get a larger scale model of a ship that was genuinely large on screen. The Enterprise B, the Enterprise J are both good examples of this. They got small models in the original 180 ship collection. The XL collection gave us a chance to get them in a much larger, more detailed scale. While I'm more than happy with the model we got of this, if you watch Valiant, they state that the Jem'Hadar battleship is twice the size of a Galaxy class. That's about 1,300 meters, which is almost the size of the USS Vengeance in the Kelvin timeline, except this is in the Prime timeline. So this is an incredibly massive ship, almost akin to the size of a D'Deridex. And I simply believe that the model we got just doesn't do justice to that. Additionally, and this next point, yes, you can argue that after Valiant, it became a cannon fodder background ship, ship. I completely get that. But for that episode of Valiant, this ship was a solid antagonist for the better half of the episode as the crew of the Valiant were finding a way to try and take down this titan of a ship that in the end they could not defeat anyway. So I personally, coupled with the size, coupled with the kind of scarcity of the ship, I think that's kind of more than enough reason to have offered the ship in at least a special edition or an XL scale that would have better paid tribute to the ship itself. So that's going to leave us with number 5, the Jem'Hadar Battleship, issue number 132. Number 4 on this list is the Romulan Warbird Veldor, which is issue number 31 in the 180 collection and featured initially in the movie Nemesis. Actually, only featured Nemesis, appeared in games, but for the most part, it was in Nemesis. And yes, I know not everybody has the strongest opinions of Nemesis, but for me personally, Nemesis was just a ton of Starship porn, and that's why I love it. And the Veldor is one of the biggest drivers behind that. In fact, I love the Veldor more than I do the Romulan D'Deridex, which had infinitely more screen time and actually had an XL model of it made, had a Micro Machines model of it made, for crying out loud. And I at least feel that the Veldor from the get-go should have been released as a special edition model, and here is why. All of the Kelvin ships, all the Sona ships from Insurrection, the Oberth are crying out loud. They're all movie ships, and they all got XL or larger scale special edition versions of them released. And the Veldor was kind of one of the only ships that was, sitting, like chopped liver in the 180 collection, just a very slim profile ship, which is another reason, by the way. It's a very stealthy, very agile, very slim ship, and there's not much material there, So you have this one little model, and you already have not much material to begin with, and it's just there's not much there. I feel like a larger model would give us more to appreciate. Similarly to the Sona Battleship, there's not much there either. And man, that XL model it's got a good weight to it. Feels so heavy, and I feel like the Veldor could have been done similar justice in that regard, and that is why it is number 4 on this list. And we're at the halfway point, so woohoo! That's going to put us with number 3, the Cardassian Galore class, which is issue number 14 in the original collection. I forget what the first episode it appeared in, but nevertheless. And granted, this is not that big of a ship. I think it's like 300 or 400 meters. It's been a while since I've looked. But one of the key reasons I think this really deserved an XL is this ship is representative of arguably one of the core races of Next Generation era Star Trek. They were a key adversary towards the end of Next Generation. They were a key adversary in Deep Space Nine all the way through the series. And I just feel like an XL model would have been better to have paid tribute to the race, especially since that's kind of the symbol of their race. Additionally, if we remember back to issue number 14 and my review on that, the detail on the model wasn't all that great. And yes, it is based off the studio model. I get that. So technically it's supposed to not be as detailed. But in contrast to that, we've seen so many times, like with the Nebula and the Stargazer, these standard models getting that much more detail when they get up to XL level. And I feel like the Cardassian Galore class definitely deserved that extra detail just to make it pop a bit more. And I think an XL model would have really helped with that, especially for a ship so representative of one of the core classes for one of the biggest eras of Star Trek. Number 2 in this list, and the recipient of the silver medal, is going to be the Borg Cube. And yes, I'm using the issue 180 as my stand-in image, but it can literally be any of the versions Eaglemoss released of the Borg Cube in the standard collection. And no, I actually don't have a Borg Cube. That's one of the few ships I do not have in my collection, so shame on me, but I guess I'm holding out for the XL. And bottom line, I can't think of a ship more qualified or a race more qualified to have an XL version of their ship. I mean, the Borg are featured in the majority of Star Trek. They are a prominent adversary in 3 of the series. They were even featured in Enterprise, for crying out loud. They were so badass that Enterprise found a way to incorporate the Borg in them. The Borg have been a prominent adversary, with the Cube featured in a feature movie, arguably one of the best Star Trek movies. If we're looking at non-canon media, video games, books, the Borg are featured in all of it, literally, and as a prominent major player. I mean, next to the Klingons, the Borg are probably one of the most prominent non-terrestrial races in all of Star Trek. They are the face of Star Trek for the most part, next to the Federation. And ultimately, I'm really appalled that we just never got an XL model, especially for a race that is continually being explored even in modern Star Trek media. And that's why I'm kind of hoping that, thankfully the Borg were featured prominently in Picard, especially in season 3. And I'm kind of hoping Fan Home will remedy what I feel is a mistake by Eaglemoss and eventually give us a larger scale model of a Borg cube. I definitely think it's something that is long overdue. And that brings us to number one, the ship that I most strongly feel deserves an XL version of itself, the USS Enterprise NCC 1701C Andrew Probert concept. And I honestly really love this ship. And I'm clearly not alone. In fact, it's one of my best performing, it is my best performing Eaglemoss review on this channel. And ultimately, I prefer the ship over the model that we got on screen. Now, I understand that Eaglemoss wanted to stick to the canon versions of the ship for the XL versions of their models, but ultimately, let me put it this way. You can't get the Probert concept ship right now, even in standard size. So there's no doubt in my mind. In fact, the pre-order sold out when the original model came around. I know, I pre-ordered it. So there's no doubt in my mind that this ship would have been an awesome seller. Furthermore, we have seen that special editions did eventually get an XL treatment. The Deep Space Nine, which already got a large size XL model, got an XL treatment, which was even larger than itself. So there's no excuse as to why a special edition could have not. I feel at least the C should have been grandfathered in as either a different ship name altogether or under the Enterprise name. Again, it would have sold. And lastly, we know that the standard model was exempt of some detail on one side. I'm not sure if that was a studio model thing or if that was just an error at the factory, but nevertheless, it was a defect. I believe they all suffered with it. I feel that given what we've seen with other Eaglemoss models that got the XL treatment, this would have been a chance to remedy that issue, to actually put the extra detail into a larger scale model and have a completely detailed, full-on, large scale model of the ship to appreciate. And that's going to put the Andrew Probert concept Enterprise C as number one on this list. So that'll about wrap everything up, but let me know down below in the comments if you agree with my list, or tell me your own list, or tell me your wish list. Furthermore, we know that Fan Home is coming up with that new Star Trek Universe collections. Let me know what you're kind of expecting from them. Do you want them to focus just on the new series that we have out, or do you think you kind of hope that they go back and kind of fill in some of the gaps that we think were left by Eaglemoss? I personally know what my answer would be, so let me know in the comments so we can discuss some Star Trek. As always, if you found this video fun and informative, I definitely do appreciate it, and that does help me out, so thank you very much. And also, if you are not yet subscribed, I definitely urge you to subscribe to my channel. I do Eaglemoss reviews regularly, and this is my first top 5 video for Eaglemoss, so we'll kind of play things by year, but either way, you'll always have the reviews to come back to. Thank you so much to the 500 plus of you that already are. I definitely appreciate it. Thank you for being part of my federation, and I hope that everyone else will join me. And that is going to conclude everything. I have been FC Finch. Thank you so much for watching. Live long and prosper.